Hello, and welcome to Take the Stand Inclusive Leaders. I'm Dana Denis-Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Obelisk Sport, a legal business, and the founder of the first 100 years, which it celebrates the achievements of women in law. I'm on a mission to make the legal sector a more inclusive place, and so I've invited legal industry leaders who also care about inclusivity to have a conversation with me. This episode, I'm talking to Ramon Baker, head of legal at NatWest, the bank, and he also chairs the legal team's Ethnic Inclusion Network. Welcome to our Take the Stand.
Thanks very much, Dana. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And let's just start with my first question that I ask all of my guests. What does inclusive leadership mean to you?
It's a great question because I think it means a couple of things to me. I think, first of all, it's really about creating and cultivating an open and positive culture. And that's a culture where everyone is supported to bring the best of themselves to work. So that's absolutely key for me. And then the second part of it for me is really just about having a relentless mission to enhance diversity of thought in all aspects of the working environment. So, the key ones being problem solving and decision making, but also about when talking about anything really, just making sure that you've got a diverse group of people with diverse experiences, individual life experiences, examples that they can bring to any issue that you're grappling with.
Very succinct and really good. I can tell that you're somebody that spends a lot of time thinking about, all of these kind of big words and what they mean. And actually, my next question really is around top qualities that you think an inclusive leaders ought to have. I mean, we don't need to talk about all of them, but in your view, what are the two, three qualities that really make a great inclusive leader?
Yeah, I'm glad that you limited me to two or three because I could probably give you hundreds. I think honesty and openness is really, really key. So people who are authentic and try to bring that authenticity through in everything that they do, including their work and their interactions with their people. I also think curiosity is incredibly important. I think it's sometimes natural to build in kind of shortcuts and to get into habits when seeking to solve problems or seeking to make decisions. And those are natural human traits that are really important to being efficient, I think, in your daily life. But as soon as you stop being curious, or it has a negative impact upon inclusion. And so constantly seeking different opinions, different viewpoints is really, really important to inclusive leadership.
Love it. I think, to be honest, I'm hoping part of these conversations people will take away, actually quite practical ideas about how they can be more inclusive. I think it's really helpful to have very clear ideas about how you can display it. But now I'm going to ask you to give me an example of your leadership style in practice.
I'm very, very fortunate to be able to lead a team of around about 18 lawyers within the bank. And, they are a group of people that have a number of the elements that I talked about right at the beginning in terms of, they are a diverse bunch. They have a really diverse background. They are physically located in different places. I'm currently sat in our Edinburgh office. I have four lawyers based up here. I'm based though in London, where I have 14 lawyers. So we have weekly team meetings, and we try to get everybody around the table. And of course, that's most of the time that's a virtual table. And so we have people that are split by physical location. Some will be in the office, some will be working from home. Some will be more naturally extroverted, some will be more naturally introverted. And so, if we're discussing difficult issues, which we are often, I am really trying to ensure that I'm creating an environment where everybody is encouraged to participate. Now, if we have set up a particular meeting for that particular purpose, one of the things that I like to do is to have a check-in at the beginning to really get everybody centered and around the issue that we're going to be discussing. So, and that check-in will do three simple things. It will ask how everybody's feeling today. It will ask what they're hoping to get out of the meeting, and it will also ask what are the barriers preventing them from being fully present. And it's a quick 60 seconds around the table, and everybody gets to contribute to that. One of the reasons that I do that is, I mean, first of all, it gets everybody talking. Everybody has to participate. But that third question about what, if anything, is preventing you from being fully present actually makes people conscious of the things that are going on around them that they may be able to switch off. Oh, I've got emails coming in left, right, and centre. Okay, turn off the notifications, turn that off for the next half hour that we're speaking, and we can focus on this discussion. Or it might be that they've had a difficult drop off of their children at school that morning. They just want to verbalize it to be able to process it, and then they can move on to focusing on work. So that's an example of how I would start a discussion. I also try to be conscious of, it's a bit too simplistic to say the introverts and the extroverts within the room, but over time, within any group of people that meet regularly, there will be certain people who speak a lot and certain people who speak less. And over time, those that actually gets magnified. The people who speak more will speak even more, and the people who speak less will speak even less. So it's about working to understand that, be conscious of that, and to actually think about how you're going to bring in those people who speak a bit less. Now, there are a number of techniques to do that. You can ask them directly. That can, for some, be a little bit confrontational, but certainly encouraging them to do so is definitely an option. But sometimes what I would think about is, I would actually potentially, knowing the agenda of the discussion that we have, pick up with some of the people who speak a bit less outside of the meeting beforehand, get a couple of their ideas, and then potentially introduce those ideas into the meeting to give them a bit of a runway to start to speak. So those are some of the techniques that I would use in order to help to provide an inclusive environment within a discussion, within a group of people that are used to working with each other but are separated by location and may have different personality traits.
That's a brilliant example as well, because it doesn't just talk about, being inclusive and thoughtful about, multiple locations, but also it talks to the kind of new ways in which we work and the new reality that we, whether we like it or not, have to accept. So we need to adjust, not just to kind of being more inclusive as a kind of concept, but more inclusive to a very different way of working. So that's a really great example, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. And I mean, I'm very fortunate to work in an organization like NatWest where, we have a purpose, and it's about helping people to thrive. And that, includes our people, absolutely. And so, it's all about making sure that we are providing a framework within which people can obviously fulfill their incredibly important work responsibilities, but do that whilst also fulfilling their home responsibilities. Because I make no bones about it for myself, my family is the most important thing for me. I would be appalled if members of my team, their family wasn't the most important thing to them. And so, it's just appreciating that we're all here for a common purpose, but they also have a personal purpose that they're trying to achieve as well, and trying to provide a framework within which they can achieve both is really, really important.
Well, the way we put it here is, being human first, because recognizing
Absolutely.
that people's lives have many facets, not just work, is, sometimes we, in the past, maybe we forgot. Some organization might still forget, but it's great to see that there's a kind of humanizing of the workplace, because without people, we won't have anything to do, really. So we do need happy workers. So
Absolutely.
actually, part of my conversations, there are kind of, two types of inclusive leaders that I've come across. Some that can share the kind of awakening moment as a result of something very positive that happened to them. And kind of, an inclusive leaders from their career journey that really influenced them to become aware and to want to be more inclusive. And then there's the other category where actually a really bad situation or really bad leadership made them realize that actually there is a better way.
Yeah.
So my next question is about, whether you can share an experience of an inclusive leadership that influenced your career journey, and why do you think it matters so much to you, whether positive or negative or some other way?
It's an excellent question. I've had a relatively long and varied career, and I've had the benefit of experiencing many different types of leaders in different areas as well. So I spent a decade in private practice, and then I spent the last 8 years here. Um, I've had some very, very bad leaders there, and leaders who I'd certainly not describe as inclusive. All of those in private practice. And I've had some very inclusive leaders as well, both in private practice and in house. Kind of more recent memories are some absolutely fantastically inclusive leaders in house. I would say that it actually comes from within the the desire to be inclusive more than anything that I've seen elsewhere. I'm I'm a very driven person. I'm very ambitious, and I want to be the best at whatever it is that I'm doing. And I was fortunate enough to secure a senior leadership role 5 years ago that I've now run with. And I think when I was starting to think about the type of leader that I would be, I knew a lot of my personality traits. I knew that how driven I was. I knew how motivated I was. I'm not sure if I was immediately self-aware, but there was a kind of eureka moment where I realized that as a leader, um, one of the things that you have to do is understand what motivates people. And you need to understand and appreciate that what motivates other people will not necessarily be what motivates you. And so you really need to be able to tap into that. So understand it first, and then use the levers that are available to you to find common ground and to bring people along on a journey. Pure bluster is not gonna make it work. Explaining how motivated I am to get the job done is not going to make it work. I'm not going to achieve anything. My team is not going to achieve anything unless delivery occurs through the team. And the only way that delivery will occur through the team is if they are motivated and bought into the mission as well. It came from a necessity for me to do a good job and to be successful in the role first, but also just an appreciation of people and understanding that they're all different. And I do think that some of those examples of bad leadership from private practice really did help. An appreciation that I moved firms a couple of times, and as a naive 2-year qualified lawyer, I moved from one mid-market firm, relatively small mid-market firm, to a large mid-market firm. And I walked in there with a load of confidence, just thinking the work's going to be exactly the same. I'm a people person. I'm going to make it work. Like, it's going to be great. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And I genuinely felt like a number in a system that was easily replaceable, and that really impacted on me. I felt like it closed in on me while I was working there, and I would never want anybody to feel like that under my leadership. And so I want to, it's incredibly important to me to create a culture where people feel valued and that they understand that they are vitally important to what we're trying to deliver.
Well, I recognize what you described for sure. So I think, your point about motivation is so underrated because there's this kind of motivation that drives an organization, and very few organizations spend time mapping that against individual motivations and then really trying to figure out how, as you say, finding the common ground. It's such great advice because I think often change is driven for the motivation of the entity as opposed to explaining it against the motivations of the individuals. It's not they don't want to help, they don't understand how it impacts them, and taking the time to explain and overlap as much as possible. You won't be able to overlap 100%, but overlapping motivations as much as possible really does make it feel more inclusive because you are bought in. So I think that's a really great bit of advice, spend some time to really understand what makes people tick. And it's worth it. It's not just an effort, it's actually shaping strategy through understanding that. But it's yeah, actually, and your kind of example is a good point for me to ask my next question, which is why and what do you think is the biggest barrier to inclusion? And now we're talking about the legal sector, but what is stopping us from just cracking this particular nut?
I think that it's a few things. It goes back to the point around conscious effort for me, I think. So, of course, in order to make a conscious effort to do anything, you need time, you need energy, and you need resources. And those are three things that I think leaders are in short supply of a lot of the time. We are busy. The work is busy. It requires a lot of you, and so you need to be able to carve out the necessary space to take the time to invest in your people in this way and to make sure that you're being inclusive. A lot of the time, this kind of time, energy, resource point, you can look at it like in the fundamental elements of recruitment. That you know when an organization has time, energy, and resources, it will build the absolute best processes available in order to ensure that you've got diverse interview panels, diverse candidates, blind recruitment processes so that you're not taking into account largely irrelevant factors that have helped privileged people thrive for decades. You can create all of these things, you can train people to appreciate all of these things. You can try to remove unconscious bias. And then you will have, in a large organization such as this, a senior person will leave, and all of a sudden the machine will kick into gear with a view to filling that role as quickly as possible in order to either ensure that there's confidence within the team or within the customer base or client base or within the wider markets or broader stakeholders. And that speed at which the machine kicks into gear to do that will often see a lot of those great efforts that we've spent so much time, energy, and resource creating. I'm not going to say they're jettisoned, but they might be watered down. And that watering down then has a material impact upon what you get out of the other end. And so this is where that constant, I think, commitment to being conscious about inclusion is incredibly important. And so I absolutely think that those are the key barriers to inclusive leadership. I also think that some other kind of human elements to factor in here. So feedback is a great example. Giving and receiving feedback. I don't think that there's many people that are very good at it. I'm not fantastic at it. It's something that I'm constantly trying to work on, and we as an organization are constantly trying to work on. Feedback needs to be timely. It needs to be, in the moment. It needs to be clear. It needs to be concise. But people get wrapped up in, it being awkward and difficult, and how am I going to feel, and how are they going to feel? And those are all barriers to having a good discussion with people about things that have gone well, but things that have gone not so well, and how we can improve them. And that requires a lot of give and take on both sides, and I don't think that there's enough of that. But I do think that a lot of that comes down to psychological safety, a lack of psychological safety, a lack of the ability to be vulnerable amongst each other, and a lack of ability to take a hard message sometimes and move on from it. And so those are a lot of the barriers that I see, and there are a lot of the things that I'm conscious of and try to make conscious efforts to mitigate wherever possible.
Great, because what I'm hearing is a kind of almost like a kind of gap forming between kind of being human, but at the same time not taking things personal or making things too personal. So you have leadership that one person is committed, they leave, and there's a gap. So by keeping it human, but at the same time not making it individual. So can you create the kind of inclusivity journey that is not linked to the individual's commitment, but to the organization generally? So you can pass on the legacy. So the person, it's kind of every organization's kind of dream is to keep, ticking along, irrespective of who's in it, right? In a way, not in a negative way or in a kind of anti-human way, but you need to make it have continuity. But how do you maintain that kind of rhythm when somebody leaves and replace it with the same level of commitment, or the machinery has it inbuilt, which is much easier said than done. But I think that's a really very, very interesting insight to kind of think about how we fall over when we have this kind of too connected commitment to a particular person, and then everything falls down. And definitely around the resources, that's such an important thing as well, because, if we mean it, we need to kind of fund it. So it doesn't
Yeah,
really happen in a kind of, magic tree kind of way. Uh,
absolutely.
but it would be
Absolutely.
great if it did, but sadly it doesn't. So my next question, therefore, is a kind of more introspective one. And what do you think is the first or maybe the one question? So I can put limitations on you. One question you can ask yourself. If you want to be more inclusive, what is the one question you should ask yourself as a leader?
Can I hand on heart say that everybody is able to bring the best of themselves to this team, this role, this meeting? I think that if you start with that, um, your answer will then determine what actions you need to take in order to be able to say yes.
Great. Great and applicable, which is the best, because I think people get tripped at the how, so many people want to do the right thing, but then when it comes to how, it becomes overwhelming or difficult or, justifying everything that can't be done. So really great. We are reaching the end of our chat. And I have a question I ask everybody at the very end. And who is your inclusive leadership role model and why? It can be anybody from anywhere. It doesn't need to be a lawyer. It doesn't need to be real. It can also be fictional. Anywhere that you took inspiration or you still take inspiration that you find inclusive leadership in action works for you.
I'm going to go very close to home and just say my wife. My wife is the most inclusive person that I know. She's a primary school teacher. She is absolutely fantastic at her job, and I mean, I am in awe of how hard that job is. It's a job that I could not do. The challenges that they face, again, time, energy, resource being amongst them. But yeah, she has a really unique ability to kind of tap in and understand people and notice them as well. And she does it at home, but she does. I see her and how she does it in her job. So she will always inspire me to be a more inclusive leader, without a doubt.
There's no better training space than a room full of children asking difficult questions.
Indeed, indeed. But even I mean, she is the super parent as far as I'm concerned. But it is amazing how she can go there and she can hold 30 children in the palm of her hand, and she gets home, but sometimes she can struggle with art too.
Yeah. Well, maybe we just need to do that. Maybe that's one action we take. Aspiring inclusive leaders in law, we take them to a classroom near you for a little bit of honest conversations
Absolutely,
and good
absolutely.
challenge. So thank you so much, Ramon, for joining us and for having this chat. I found it fantastic, and I hope our viewers found this conversation interesting and useful, and that it's given them plenty of ideas for making the workplace, the team, and organization they work in more inclusive. To find more conversations on inclusivity, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Obelisk Support, or connect with me on LinkedIn, searching Dana Denis-Smith and heading to my video section. And if you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch by email at d.denis-smith@obelisksupport.com. Thank you for listening and tuning in into the Take the Stand Inclusive Leader series. See you soon.